Yeah, welcome into the Thursday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. Joseph, good morning. How are you? What's going on?
Doing all right. I mean, my gosh, it was like 65 degrees walking outside today. So
It's great.
I'm here for that. It seems like a lot of times lately, like the beginning of the show, we talk about the weather.
Well,
isn't that nice?
When you get warm temperatures in early February, I think it's worth celebrating.
It's notable.
It is notable.
It's weird, though, because it's like, so tomorrow the high is only like 50, and then Saturday the high is like 70.
Yeah.
And then it's back to 50. And then next week it's kind of like more like blah. It's like rainy and 40 every day, 48 every day or whatever.
You want a nice combo of sports and weather?
Yeah.
This is your program.
There's your weather forecast, folks, from my phone for the next week.
Geezer, how we doing? What's going on?
Good morning. Hey, doing great. Looking forward to the weekend, fellas.
Well, you got today and tomorrow before we get there.
I know,
but
it's
you got a nice date on Friday night with yours truly.
Yep.
For Predators and Blackhawks here in the studio.
That's right.
Weekend's a long ways away, boss.
Pizza party, Joe. You should come join us.
Yeah, I think I actually am going to Knoxville this weekend. Like, and it's not because of basketball; it's because my football playing son loves playing football so much. He's playing rugby now for Ravenwood.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
good. How about that?
So yeah, I guess we just keep on going with the sports travel.
You talk about a
Why
sport
not?
that looks really fascinating to me, but I don't quite understand. Rugby is one of those.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool, and I don't totally get it, and I'm gonna find out if he does on Saturday.
Go get that turf burn, baby.
Yeah, it's like they're playing a game, and then like the UT rugby team is playing after. It's like a combo of some high school and some so
it's a big weekend out there.
Yeah, I guess so. But this is your last day with us together, Nick, because we're going to be at Duncan tomorrow.
That's right. Yeah. Yes.
But at least you still can hang out with Robby tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's big time for you. We got a lot to get to on the program. Yeah, big game as well. Actually, kind of is. Next two games for the Predators.
Yeah, well.
It's like, well, Buffalo, Chicago, right next to them in the standings right now.
Good teams to lose to.
Yeah, we'll see what happens on that front. Speaking of the Predators, Todd Richards scheduled to join us at 7:30 later in the program. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get into the Titans, all things NFL, the Super Bowl, all those nice things with Charles later in the program as well. I got a Rob rant for the people of this city and this area that we're getting to later in the program as well. So
nice.
Be looking forward to that.
It's about edge rushers, right tackles, bother me.
So, like, there have been multiple people that have texted me about that since we've started talking about it. They're like, it does kind of sound like you're just sitting there reading something. I'm like, yeah, I know. I don't know what we were doing there.
Football, sports, golf.
Driver, 8-iron, 7-iron. I can do this all day. That's what you're tuning in this program for.
Yes, analysis.
Some more trades last night in the NBA, Joe, including between our two teams. Jimmy Butler going for my Miami Heat after the big wine fest that those two have had for the last month and a half. He ends up with Golden State. Not only does he end up on Golden State, he signs an extension there and gets the big payday that he was looking for the next couple of years. So Golden State getting Jimmy Butler into the mix here. Dalton Connect getting traded last night from the Lakers to Charlotte as a part of the whole reshuffling that LA is doing since bringing Luka Doncic over. So the NBA trade deadline has been very, very fun so far this year, and more added to that puzzle last night.
Yeah, so Mark Williams is the big, and look, I was wondering, like, is anybody going to get a rebound? Is anybody going to catch a lob? Anybody block a shot for the Lakers? I don't like the Dalton Connect move, like moving him out, but I guess he's close to Knoxville again.
He is.
But Mark Williams is. That makes sense. That makes sense as a move for the Lakers to get him with. He's going to catch a lot of Luka lobs over the years. So you got to tip the cap to them, man. Rob Pelinka, who I most remember as being the little walk-on scrub when the Fab Five back in the day. He's taking a lot of crap, but he's boys. He had a heck of a trading deadline here, and I'm not necessarily excited about Jimmy Butler joining my Warriors, but I'm not against it. Apparently Kevin Durant just didn't want to do it, which I get. Yeah, like Kevin Durant, it's not like that's a guaranteed ring if he comes back, and it's almost like trying to, again, it's kind of like after Fonzie jumps the shark. Happy Days is still on TV, but it's pretty lame in the 80s,
Nice.
Yeah, and so hey, I'm intrigued. I'm gonna watch Golden State more now to see how it works out. Maybe Butler stays healthy and goes off, and it just works beautifully with the chemistry. But to me, it's kind of like like a backup move, right? I mean, he wanted to go to the Suns.
Yes.
Which that couldn't work out because Bradley Beal's got a no trade.
Yeah.
See, folks, no trade clauses sometimes they hold. Are a problem,
especially when you're Bradley Beal and you've fallen off the face of the earth.
Yeah, it's like, nope, sorry, I'm just gonna sit here. You guys can suffer with me.
That's right.
But I don't know. I'm intrigued. I'm more interested to watch him now.
Yeah, like I'm interested to see how it goes. Like Jimmy Butler's 35, so it's not like Golden State's getting younger here. But I told you before the show, the one thing I'll say about Jimmy Butler, and there's a lot of crazy that comes along with Jimmy Butler, but the one thing I'll say about him, playoff time, that game elevates. He is an elevator once the playoffs come around. So we'll see.
Is he good at getting a team into the playoffs?
Mostly, yeah.
Okay. Gonna need to do that first.
He did that a lot in the Eastern Conference, which is a little bit easier to get in on that side of things.
Yeah.
So we'll see what that looks like in the NBA side of things. Tennessee with a win last night, Joe, against Missouri in a game where they shot the ball extremely well. They end up winning 85-81 against Missouri in a top 15 matchup last night. Zakai Ziegler back out there for Tennessee, ended up 21, including 4 for 4 from 3 last night. So who knows? Maybe a little bit of a semi-break for him. Got the legs back under him. 21 for him last night. Milicic had 21 last night as well. And the story of the game for Tennessee, they shot 50% from the floor. They shot 66.7% from 3, hit 2/3 of their threes last night.
Yeah, they were on their way to getting run out of their own building. Really, Missouri is a legit team. Missouri is very good, and they just started shooting the absolute cover off the ball, which we haven't seen a lot from the balls, but that's what it was. They just started hitting every single shot and completely changed the game. So maybe it is his legs. Maybe, Zakai had some time off, got some shots up, a little bit of a reset. He looked great. And Milicic, both those guys missed the win over Florida, which when you watch last night, the Vols would have lost by 40 had they not played,
yep.
In that game. So, but that's a big time win. And, I saw that Joe Lenardi copied me this week and put the Vols back on the 1 seed like I did. That's
it really is a shame that he gets his bracketology information from you.
Yeah, I know. I'm on to him. But that's they're right now they're a 1 seed. Right now the SEC's got Alabama, Auburn, and Tennessee on the 1 line. And I'm more optimistic about the Vols, especially, and they're not going to shoot like that, but they had some offensive flow. Just amazing. Just hit a few shots, and it's amazing how everything else gets better. And then vice versa on those nights when nothing will go in.
Well, sometimes we see this in basketball. Like there's a game that you look back on at the end of the year, and it's like, yeah, that's where we figured some things out offensively. Maybe it does end up being that Florida game. It's not like Zakai Ziegler had a whole lot of things to figure out. But when you're as depleted in their lineup as they were in that game, it probably does force you to do things a little bit differently. And I think, one thing Mike Wilson brought up with us the other day that is interesting about this too is like when you're in a situation like they were in against Florida and you're just limited with your lineup, you can't pull guys. Like you just got to let them play. And I wonder how much that game affects the rest of this season for them offensively is going to be interesting to see.
Yeah. Sometimes it's great to have depth. There are teams out there that have a lot of depth. Sometimes that can be, it's hard to make choices in situations. Our co-executive producer, Tom Izzo, has that issue. He has a different winning time lineup every time.
He's talking about that this morning.
Yeah.
Pre-game show.
Yeah.
Pre-game meeting.
And Barnes, he doesn't have that many choices. So it is kind of clear. I think sometimes it's good for a team to know exactly kind of what everybody's doing. But I still think they also need Darlin Stone DeBar. They still need him to play more eventually. So, but yeah, I think that Florida game, you're right. I mean, that may be the thing you look back on. They always have a little dip. I mean, it's just about every team does. And then people question everything, including Rick Barnes ability to. Does he know what a basketball is? Take the whistle away from him. It's a good team, man. It's Dalton Knecht gets traded. You're always reminded, like, man, they don't have that guy, but they're pretty good.
Hey, as Cal figured it out with the Hogs, beats Kentucky, and then follows it up last night with a win against Texas on the road.
Well, maybe I watched that game, wrote a little bit about it, and that's the 14th team. The SEC. I mean, there's a bunch of them that may not get in. Vanderbilt, Georgia, they're all around the Texas, around the bubble. But Arkansas now, you have to consider they're a viable 14th SEC NCAA tournament team.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, pretty wild. And yeah, they're low. They got plenty of Jonas Adu barely plays for them. Big Z's out there. I mean, they got dudes.
I need somebody in Arkansas to do the deep dive, because my suspicion is the reason they're playing better right now is somewhere along the way here, Calipari has finally bitten the bullet and he's called the Hogs at some point. I have no proof, but I feel like that's been the turnaround that they've needed. I've been waiting on him to call the Hogs. Haven't seen it, but I think behind the scenes somewhere he might have done it.
Maybe, but until he does it publicly, this team will not come close to its ceiling. So
I agree.
Maybe he's going to wait till they come here for the SEC tournament, and then it'll just be Katie bar the door.
You talk about a way to get me fully invested in the SEC tournament. Have John Calipari out there calling Hogs.
Doing the Musselman, doing it shirtless like Musselman. Yeah.
That's right. 615.
Miss that guy.
737-1025. Our phone number. We've talked a lot about quarterback with the Tennessee Titans and which quarterbacks the Titans fans want. I'm throwing the opposite question out there today. What quarterback would you just absolutely hate it if the Titans ended up with this offseason? We'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. We have the best and worst things in sports coming up later this hour as well. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-1063 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. With the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. So I'm throwing the question out there on the quarterback front. Which quarterbacks this offseason would you just hate to end up with if you're a Tennessee Titans fan? We've talked a lot about who you want, the quarterbacks that are available, and the options for the Tennessee Titans. Which quarterback do you absolutely not want the Titans to end up with this offseason? We'll take your thoughts on that. Some early votes already in, Joe, on our text line. We have some votes.
Don't tell me.
Okay.
There's got to be Aaron Rodgers because that's the first thing that comes.
Aaron Rodgers is the first one I saw from Mo on the text line.
That's
no Aaron Rodgers, for the love of God.
Yeah, and it's funny because it was not that long ago, right? At all. Like, I guess it was 3 years ago, but the whole, oh my gosh, he bought and just, can you imagine Aaron Rodgers? And I was like, God, no. And as you've pointed out, I mean, look at his numbers.
They're not bad.
They're not bad, but he's not, obviously he's not what he was, and he is more than he's ever been in terms of being an annoyance. So that's got to be a heck of an offseason.
Like he could get out there, and there's no telling what some of the things he might put in his body where he comes back.
That's true.
He could look better than ever next year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You see, reading those coverages before a team even comes out with a third eye.
Guys wouldn't believe the defense they're about to line up in. Let me tell you.
I mean, ayahuasca is supposed to actually help you tell the future. That's supposed to be part of it. So, I mean, imagine if you actually know where the safety's going 5 seconds before the snap.
Look, we've
dominated.
We've joked about the Deion Sanders Kuharski potential on a daily basis for a press conference setting, which is obviously not going to happen. I will say, I think, Rodgers and PK has some potential as well. Like Rodgers, PK would have some potential along the way.
Yes. Although it doesn't, way more than me with Rodgers, at the pressers, it doesn't feel like, it seems like Rodgers is, rather than being a combative guy in those situations, just goes to McAfee and cries about stuff.
I would say that's probably his press conference setting. It's pretty good. He's pretty useful in those things.
I give you some insight.
I always leave room for PK for there to be.
Oh, sure.
Be a little bit of spiciness.
Oh,
there.
no, yeah, absolutely. No, he's got that potential with
anybody. You been to the darkness retreat this weekend?
PK's got that potential with anybody, even his buddy Brinker. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not. Who knows? So I got a good morning. You never really know who you're going to hate. I still want to believe in Will, but will it ever happen? Only time will tell, says Scotty. I'm a little surprised by anyone basically being run it back with Levis. He's still, not that there's no hope for Levis in his career, but it just seems so obvious to me that should not happen.
Wes in Clarksville worried about Deshaun Watson would be the worst move. I don't think you have to worry about that one.
Yeah.
He talks about if they traded with the Browns with number one and somehow Watson got involved in the deal. I don't think you're gonna have to worry about that.
Yeah, we're talking realistic. Like I said, Charles Manson. That would be my pick. Absolutely would hate that one. Yeah. Of the realistic. Because, people would be different levels of excitement about. Some people might say Russ.
I think mine is Justin Fields. I want no part of Justin Fields.
That's so disappointing.
I know. I've seen Justin Fields play a lot of football, and I just think Justin Fields, you're running into, and I know they're different players, and Justin Fields is way more of a running threat than Will Levis. But I just think you're running into some of the same stuff throwing the ball with him, where you're just late on your decisions and you're not accurate with the football. And I don't want that if I'm the Titans.
But then he'll just put that 50-yard laser right in the spot. Yeah. And at least with him, he'll also actually rip off a 50-yard run, right?
Yes. At times.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying.
I think he's the one where I just be like, oh no, let's just not do that. Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Larry to the program. Larry, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good, Larry.
Hey, my quarterback, well, I got two of them, Shador Sanders and Cam Ward. I'm a big trade back in the draft to collect more picks. So if either one of those guys are on the Titans roster next year, I'll probably be very disappointed.
Thanks for calling.
And part of my logic is that I believe if the Titans do trade back with either Cleveland, the Giants, and a couple of the other teams, those teams are probably going to suck next year as well. So you have a very high chance to get a top 2 pick next season as well.
There you go. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate the call.
I don't think Larry's going to be alone on that.
No. Shador Sanders, Cam Ward.
And any rookie from this class, could be an answer.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think those are all viable answers. There are some that I think would answer this and they would say, I don't want Kirk Cousins because he's coming off the torn Achilles and he was just absolutely brutal the way that the season ended last year. You can, if you really want to, which I think kind of goes into what we've discussed with the quarterbacks that are available this offseason, you really want to, like, you could find a way for a lot of these guys to be your answer in this discussion of the quarterback that you don't want to end up with if you're a Titans fan.
Yeah, it's actually, there's probably more enthusiastic answers of this than the who would you really be excited about.
Right.
I mean, it's so I've seen Cousins. There's certainly some Levis.
Well, and on the Levis front, like, I'm not saying he's not realistic, but like, I think it's pretty clear that Will Levis is not going to be the quarterback here next year. Like, the Titans are saying all the right things, and Levis was at the Super Bowl and he spoke with Jim Wyatt, and Borgonzi has talked about they're going to give Levis every opportunity. I just don't know that I buy that there's any realistic chance that he's a viable option for them at quarterback next year.
No, I think the most I could see would just basically being the, in a air quotes competition, but pretty much internally designated as QB2.
Yeah,
that could happen. But no, I just, again, unless these guys are like, okay, let's take this year and let's get rid of Callahan, and then we'll move on to the next phase. I don't see how that's possible. Yeah, I know I saw Levis. I got to do whatever I can do to convince him, and that's what he's got to do. He's got to keep trying to get better, and he may be here, but I think it's more likely somewhere else.
Well, we're going to get more specifically into him to start the 7 o'clock hour, because there was a take that PK had on him yesterday that I don't agree with. Like, I don't think that that's going to be the way things play out here with him. So we'll get into that a little bit more in the 7 o'clock hour. But I just think the writing is kind of on the wall with him. And I think when you've got a new regime coming in, they've talked about it, like quarterback, they got to get figured out. And I don't think you're figuring out quarterback by Will Levis being your option coming up here. So, like, I hear Titans fans, but like, we're getting a lot of answers right now. Like, Will Levis is a guy. I'm not saying it's totally unrealistic. I don't think it's very realistic that Will Levis is the quarterback choice at the end of all this. I think one of these guys that we've talked about is going to end up being their choice, and it may not work out well, but I think you're going to see at least one, and if I had my guess, probably 2 different quarterbacks in here next year.
Stilly says, which I hurt Caroline to, have to rule against him. I still say let Stilly just have the win, but he says 40% chance, I think 40% chance that Sam Darnold is the quarterback of the Tennessee Titans.
That seems pretty high.
And he's at like 0 that he's the Vikings quarterback.
0, huh?
Hey, man.
So he's got a way higher chance that he's the Titans quarterback than the Vikings quarterback.
Way higher. He from the things that he's been told on Radio Row, apparently he's had some amazing guests.
Yeah. Shout out to Braden Narvison.
Yeah, Braden Narvison, bringing it home, baby. I need to hear that interview. So, Braden, what's it like to kick a football, and why aren't you very good at it?
When you went up to Lambeau and you missed every kick that you attempted, how was that? I'm being a little too hard on Braden Narvison.
Oh, yeah, poor Braden.
My bad.
Well, if you're going to get on the Stilly show, then, you're opening yourself up. No, but
I did enjoy my favorite. You would have loved this. The end of the Braden Narvison interview. He was like, "Who's your best friend on the Titans?" And Braden Narvison was like, "Well, it's actually Devondre Sweat." He's like, "Oh, really? Well, I'm kind of proud of Devondre Sweat. I thought, to begin the season that he might be too fat coming in there, but he worked out." And Braden Narvison's just like, "Okay, thanks."
Braden, did you ever buy him some diet food? Did you guys get salads together, or
I thought Devondre might be too fat, but it turns out he worked out pretty well for the Titans.
And Narvison's like, what have I done here? What am I doing? But still, apparently he's heard things, and like the one that I mean, like Albert Breer, I guess, like the Vikings love McCarthy. It's like, I get that,
Yeah.
but you're telling me that they're just moving on. So he has been convinced on Radio Row. So
Guess we'll
I don't
see.
know. We will see.
Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Marcus to the program. Marcus, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Hey,
I
Marcus.
just want to say, man, I think we really need to get Sanders back there, because when I look at it, man, we need somebody that can take a lick and keep on ticking. I see a lot of McNair Sanders sometimes. That dude took a lot of licks in college and still threw for 400 or 500 yards. He never really, never see him lose his head. Levis Woods talking about his nipple. Come on. I'm just looking at it like, I don't care if Ward looks good, but can he take a lick and keep on ticking? That's what happened. Because he's going to take a lick with us, because we ain't got no good line. So we need to get, we know this. We know this for a fact. So we keep playing the same game. We keep on playing, trying to get with these boys that got a little mental, or they might be tall or whatever. But who can take a lick and keep it going, man?
I like it.
I
Thank you,
think
Marcus.
Sanders is that man.
I appreciate it.
Wait, what is that commercial? That was an 80s commercial. Take a lick and
Well,
keep
I
on
was born
ticking.
in 92. I couldn't tell you.
God, I keep forgetting things.
I like to
the
take a lick and keep on ticking.
Well, Shadur Sanders got sacked a lot.
He did.
And he might get sacked a lot here.
Had a analytics guy on the other day from one of these 1 billion analytics websites that are out there.
Okay.
And was talking about Shadur Sanders. And apparently, according to their analytics, most of the sacks were on him, not the offensive line for Colorado. Your thoughts on that?
Okay. Well, I mean, that's fine. I've watched. It's Timex. Thank you. Timex, 1980s. It's like the watches. Someone will like fall in the pool, and yeah. I don't know, man. I watched Colorado some, and it looked to me like there was a free rusher a lot. So I think sometimes these.
I'm just telling you what the analytics guy said.
I know, and PFF grades and all that stuff. There's some value in it, but I don't know. He did take a licking, and he kept on ticking.
He did. 615-737-1025, our phone number. The quarterback that the Titans could get this offseason, or you would just hate it. We'll have more of your thoughts on that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. This week's Nashville's best deal is Prince's Hot Chicken, the original and iconic hot chicken joint. Get half off a $25 gift card while supplies last at thegamenashville.com/deals. Gift card only good for the Tanger outlets in Antioch and inside Assembly Food Hall in downtown Nashville. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. Brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Throwing the question out there, what quarterback do you want absolutely no part of if you're a Titans fan this offseason? Joe, a lot of different responses on this. I talked about how Justin Fields is probably my answer. Drew on the text line says, I don't love any of the draft options. Sammy Diesel, which I'm cool with that being the name now from Sam Darnold from now on, would be okay. My opinion is we should go for Fields. I don't think we've seen the best of him, and the ceiling could be high if Callahan is the quarterback whisperer that he's presumed to be. On the text line.
Well, let's see. It's not like Justin Fields had who did he have in Chicago? I can't keep track of all their firings and hirings.
Good Lord, who was before Eberflus? They fired a lot of people there. I'm trying to think.
He didn't have any.
Was
anyone.
it Matt Nagy?
Yep, that's who it was.
Good job.
Way to go, Nick.
He did have Arthur, and who I think is good, a good OC in Pittsburgh, and he got beat out by Russ. I agree with you. Like at this point, that's the thing is, it's like Levis. This is only his second year, so there's still more time, obviously, for him to figure it out. I'm not super optimistic that it's all going to come together for Fields. I thought he was going to be great in the league, and I think your diagnosis of him is correct. But it's Callahan is supposed to be a QB guy, right? And it's not impossible for people to get better. So I don't hate it. I don't hate it as much as a lot of people do.
Well, I hear you on all that. I think one of my follow-up questions to that would be, and you can't operate this way if you're the Titans, but like Callahan is supposed to be the QB guy, and it went totally south with Will Levis. Now, how much of that is just it's Will Levis? And how much of that is
fix it?
Yeah, like how much of that is it's Brian Callahan, and maybe he's not the QB guy that we thought he was heading into the draft. I don't know what the answer is. I would tend to guess, if I had to assign blame to it, that a lot of it's probably just Will Levis not being good enough. But I do think regardless of who the quarterback is, this is crucial for Brian Callahan to ensure that it works. And not only that it works pretty quickly out of the gate next season for the Titans. There's no more of this, if it's a rookie quarterback, it's probably a different discussion, but there's no more of this, well, we'll get it figured out by like late October if you're the Titans offensively. You got to be going if you get the veteran quarterback.
Yeah, the whole QB whisperer thing. If you're Brian Callahan, it's you just want a good quarterback and to win. Like given the choice between someone who you can prove you're a quarterback whisperer or someone is good and comes in and wins football games, you'd probably much rather have that. Ron says, I know it's wishful thinking, but Tannehill is completely healthy. Would he consider being a bridge QB? I've said this before, and there is absolutely less than zero chance that Ryan Tannehill would come back. Ron says, is that his choice or Amy's choice? It's his choice. Ryan Tannehill, my guess is probably done in the NFL. Yeah. But if he's not done in the NFL, it's because the bat phone called him into a contender. That's it. The bat phone found him. It was a good situation. You know what? You could actually make a playoff run with this team, and everything's in place, and they lost their QB, kind of like Cleveland with Joe Flacco 2 years ago. That's the only way Ryan Tannehill touches the field. He would never play for this organization again.
I agree with that. Oh, and I think he's done.
He's probably
done. It didn't happen last year. Now, nobody that was in like what we would call, I think, real contention for a championship lost their quarterback for a significant period of time last year either. So he never, I think that's what he was waiting on to see if that happened, and it never happened. Now, now that he's been off for a full season, like, is it likely that somebody's going to call him next year if that happens? Like, I would doubt it. Like when you're talking about a guy that at that point will have not played football in almost 2 years. So, well, it's not like it's never happened that way before, but I would doubt it.
Less likely. He's out of sight, out of mind. But if I were a team, depending on, like, if I were the Lions and I lost Goff halfway through, I would think about it. But yeah, more than likely he's
Just go get Teddy.
done.
Teddy's coaching high school football. Pull
They've
him up
got
off the
Teddy.
sideline. I know, but I'm assuming he's going back to coach high school football. I don't know. He's got a state championship to defend, for
That's
God's
true.
sake.
They got some spring workouts coming up here.
Yeah.
Santa in Portland. Here, this is a good thing to address. He says, if Callahan's a QB guy, why did he send Levis someone else to get better? So, these that everybody does that, Santa. Everybody. Every single QB in this league has their own QB guy. Or they switch guys, or they have multiple guys. I mean, coaches, NFL coaches, there's a union. There are severe limitations on what you can do to coach players in this league. The collective bargaining has chipped away at that more and more and more. So he only gets them during the designated times, the spring stuff, and then the season. So every quarterback has QB guys. Forget
NFL. Like a lot of college quarterbacks have their own QB guys.
They all do.
Like Nico has his own quarterback guy.
Yes. Right.
It sometimes is in Tennessee, in Knoxville.
Yes. There's certainly not a major college QB who doesn't have one. And I would be surprised if there's any level of college quarterback who doesn't have someone like that. It's you have to, or at least everybody thinks you have to.
Wes from Hermitage. I keep hearing a lot about Stafford to the Titans. Is there anything real with that? I wouldn't be opposed to that either. I don't think a lot of Titans fans would be opposed to that. I'm interested to see what the plan is for the Rams this offseason, because they're moving on from Cooper Kupp, obviously, or at least they're going to try to via trade. Is this just a situation where they're trying to kind of reload around Stafford? I think Stafford's playing for like $27 million or whatever it is next year. Like, he's not playing for that. I think everybody understands that. So if they're bringing Stafford back, they're going to have to restructure the contract there. Are they interested in doing that? Are they fully pulling the plug and going rebuild new quarterback here in LA? I don't know. Either way, as we've discussed, Joe, I think of the options that are out there, Stafford to me might be the least realistic that's out there.
Yeah, he's the pipe dream, and I threw his name out yesterday, and still he tried to turn it into a nuclear war. But again, just saying, like, that to me is at the very high end of the could it happen? Could he be a free agent? Yes. Would he pick the Titans? I would guess that the Titans would be last on any list he would have. Why is he extending his career to come back to a 3-14 team?
Right.
But I'm just saying that. Yeah. So I agree. It's a very, very slim chance. A little bit less than apparently 50-50. Darnold's a Titan.
Sam Diesel. I don't know if I've heard that nickname thrown out there, but we got it earlier on the text line. I kind of like it.
Honestly, when I saw it, I'm like, wait, Sam Howell? Is Sam Diesel? Now I get it.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts on the quarterback position, plus the best and worst things in sports coming up next. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
The best and worst of the sports week, now on Robby and Rexrode.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst. You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself.
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle. It's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
It is that time of the week. Time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe Rexrode, kick us off with your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Well, my best is the Luka AD trade. Not for Dallas. If this were a show in Dallas, this would not be my best in the best in sports. But what a trade. What a moment. We're going to remember this. It's just it's an earth shaker. So, best to me for the Lakers more than it is for the Mavs, but just for sports in general, man, that's a big one. I did not see that one coming. I think I should change my worst to Wes Rucker tweeting last night that a hydrogen bomb had just been dropped on Dalton Connect's beanbag. But I will go with
He did get traded.
Yes, he did. A hydrogen bomb in the beanbag. Well, please. But I'm going to go with
Thank you, Wes.
we love you, Wes. I'm going to go with the officiating stuff that I ranted about yesterday. It's so dumb. And I will, again, I'm always impressed by our audience. Like, I know that, like, if this same conversation were brought up on the Stilly show, the text line would probably make me want to, claw my eyes out. But, for the most part, our audience, gets it. And it's really dumb. This whole, like, the league-wide conspiracy crap. I will say, even though it's my worst in sports, I do think there's something to having these conversations, talking about them and talking about better officiating, more accountability for officiating, the real threat to integrity games, which is gambling and individual officials being compromised, and all that stuff is important. So it's open the conversation.
There we go.
It's just that the worst is the part of the conversation that's incredibly stupid.
How do you think Roger Goodell is going to show up on Sunday in like a Chiefs jersey? You think that happens?
Well, it'll probably be like just like undershirt.
Yeah.
And he'll just hit his bucket. Put the camera on Taylor Swift. Hit that button.
Nick Keyser, your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Yeah, going over to college hoops. Michaela Blakes a week ago today dropped 53 points.
Yes.
So that is a new SEC record in a single game. So kudos to her and the Commodores. They've done very well this year. Both men and women have done very well.
By the way, Michaela Blake's now officially, according to Kuharski, in the top 3 of high school graduates from his school, along with himself and Rudy from the Cosby Show. So there's that too.
Really?
That's what he said.
Rudy from the Cosby Show went to his high school?
He said he wasn't sure that Rudy graduated, but she went there.
Okay.
Huh.
I said, all right.
Interesting.
That's pretty
Good to know they're in the top 3.
I thought he was going to say top 3 athletes. Well, I don't know. Now, Rudy, if anybody remembers Sweet Feet, she was a heck of a youth football player.
Yeah.
With her friend Peter. You ever heard of the Cosby Show?
Well, yes, that, yeah. But
Rudy was Sweet Feet. She had the episode where she was a great little running back.
didn't see that.
Sorry,
one.
you're a little too young. It's okay.
Yeah.
And also, it's like, it's like I always feel like, I still love the Cosby Show, but also it's like, shit, is it okay to watch it? You know what I mean? It's like the whole thing.
Transgressions aside, it was a good show at the time.
Yeah, the show was good.
Yep. Keyser, your worst thing in sports.
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt.
No. Worst would definitely, and I mean, it's fast, but we had the clip yesterday of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Just the Super Bowl media days are so awkward on social media. I was not a huge fan, and the audio quality is just complete cheeks. I mean, if there's any point in posting, making sure it's audible is very good idea. So I would say the media days down there in New Orleans.
There you go. My best thing in sports, and we'll see what ends up happening with it, but the bid for the WNBA team here in Nashville, I think it's got the opportunity to be very successful. I think it's got the opportunity to be really exciting around here. And that league, particularly since Caitlin Clark has come in, has exploded in popularity. So we'll see what ends up happening and if Nashville ends up getting the bid here. But, it makes a lot of sense to me. I have no idea what the number was and what the bid was from the Haslams, but I expect to hear at some point over the next, he put it out there in the Tennessean. Hopefully the next 6 months or so, they'll be able to get a verdict one way or the other. But I think a cool moment there and an opportunity to bring another professional sport to our city. So that's my best thing in sports. My worst thing, Joe, I'm looking at the date today. It's February the 6th, which got me thinking, yeah, when's the NFL draft? Oh, it's April 24th. So we still have until April the 24th when this thing is in Green Bay, which God bless. It's in Green Bay at Lambeau Field. But that's a long time. We got 2.5 months left of this stuff before the draft comes around, which is just awful to think of. I wish the draft, in this particular case, this year, I wish the draft was like the Monday after the Super Bowl. I was like, let's just get this thing over with and go.
I hear you. Yeah, it's a slog, but you do have free agency, so you have
even that's a month away.
Well, yeah, it's a month away, but you have that. I mean, look, someone on the text line, as they said, they're best in sports, Mr. G, SEC basketball. It's basketball season. Just saying, it's also hockey season.
I'm not allowed to watch my favorite basketball team because they can't play when I watch.
That's true. You need to try to break that.
I've tried.
It's not going to be just the next time they play a crappy team, which unfortunately doesn't really happen much in this league, but next time they play a crappy team, watch that game. They'll probably shoot well, and then you can end it.
All right.
But yeah, I see multiple SEC men's basketball. Totally agree.
Cam has multiple bests. Says SEC basketball, chasing history in Nashville for 2 number 1 picks. It's exciting.
Okay. And
the trade show in the NBA says the worst is the Super Bowl matchup is not fun. I agree. Preds are horrible. And also the wait until the NFL draft. I didn't even see this from Cam, but we're of similar mind there.
Yeah, it's a long time. You got free agency, you got the NCAA tournament. And that'll take us to like April 7th. And then, you kind of, you're in the home stretch. Matt from Fairview, best Grizzlies continue to play at a high level. The Grizzlies are fun. Worst, Dalton Knecht getting traded to the Hornets.
Grizzlies are, what are they now, like 35? 35-16, number 2 in the West right now. So they are
quietly
number 2 team in the West. OKC's number 1, 49. They're going to win the regular season crown in the West. But Memphis, nice rebound year that they've had here.
No, it's great to see because, look, a year ago, we were talking about what is going to happen here with John Morant and everything, So, look, man, that's a team that in the years to come, they can get into this thing if some things break their way. So that's great to see.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. We will have more of your thoughts on the quarterbacks to get to coming up next, including a take yesterday from Kuharski that I'm not sure I agree with as it relates to Will Levis. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you. Predators assistant coach Todd Richards scheduled to join us later in the hour at 7:30. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us at 8 o'clock. We will get into the Titans, all things NFL, the Super Bowl, with him coming up later in the program. Taking your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025. So, Rexrode, we had Kuharski in for his weekly visit yesterday. And one of the subjects that came up was Will Levis and what his role here could be moving forward. Now, Will Levis was apparently down at the Super Bowl this week and caught up with the media, and Jim Wyatt put a piece together on him at TennesseeTitans.com. And Brian Callahan kind of clued us in a couple of weeks ago on what the offseason plans look like for Will Levis. He's going to go out to California, work with Jordan Palmer, quarterback's coach, and has a specific set of things that Brian Callahan and the Titans want to see him work on. So all that's great. We'll see what that looks like and if there's some improvement there from Will Levis over the offseason. Kuharski was talking yesterday and said, like, Will Levis is going to be on the roster. Like, he is going to be here by the time training camp rolls around. And I don't know that I totally agree with that from a couple of different standpoints. Number one, I made the case at the end of the year last year that I just don't think that's a good idea. Like, I think if you're moving on from Will Levis, you need to move on from Will Levis. And I understand the idea of he's a young quarterback, and you look around the league right now and you see a lot of these guys that are on their second or third teams that are starting to be late bloomers, if you will, and playing better. So I get that idea. And if you wanted to go purely, Joe, the veteran route, and that's your plan if you're the Titans this offseason, where it's like, all right, we've circled whoever it is, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, whoever, and that's who you're going after and targeting as a quarterback, then maybe it does make a little bit more sense to have Levis on the roster after that. If your plan is to draft a quarterback, I think it makes no sense whatsoever to have Will Levis around on this team. I think you need a veteran backup if you're going to go with Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick. And if I was in charge, I'd probably move on from Levis this offseason regardless. But I think certainly if you're going rookie quarterback, he will not be on this roster by the time training camp comes around.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, look, the veteran QB, we've talked about this too, but, the veteran QB scenario is Levis is not, to me, the ideal, reliable, veteran, game-managing guy as a backup, Levis is a young quarterback trying to make his way in this league who takes big chances and takes big swings, and so far it's worked out a lot, bad than good for him. So, like, it's not an ideal backup for the veteran. So, I mean, look, it's the best situation to me for Levis, which is not a great situation for the Titans, but the best situation for Levis is probably like maybe a Justin Fields, maybe a Jameis Winston or something, where it's kind of like, I guess it's a competition. But how excited would people be around here if it was Jameis Winston or Will Levis? Or, like Justin Fields, to me, would be the starter if it was him and Levis in a 2-quarterback thing. But at the same time, if Justin Fields doesn't progress and Levis takes huge steps next year, then okay, then he could end up passing him. But again, how good is your quarterback play overall if that's the case?
Doesn't sound great. And like, I understand this is going to be his 3rd year coming up. So there's still a chance. And I know some people will just dismiss this out of hand. That's fine. I get it. I would probably, if I was a betting man, dismiss it too. But there's a chance that Levis continues to work, continues to develop, and at some point turns into a much more reliable player and reliable bridge starter, fringe starter than he is right now. I think the idea of him just totally figuring it out at some point and being like some star quarterback, I just can't see that with him. I've been wrong before, but I can't see that with him. So we'll see what happens on that front. If you're the Titans looking at it, yes, you have roster control over him. You have an opportunity where you're not paying him that much money since you took him in the 2nd round. So you can make some arguments as to why it makes sense to keep him around. I just think when you move on from a quarterback like that, it's a really difficult scenario to kind of maintain there in that room. Now, having said that, he said all the right things. Like one thing he brought up this week at the Super Bowl was like, we went 3-14. I'm not offended by the idea that they're going out and looking for another quarterback. It's up to him to prove all those things. So credit to him. Like he's not sitting here moping and pouting. And quite frankly, nobody would feel sorry for him if he was, given the way that he's played. So he at least, I think, gets it and gets the situation that he's put himself in. In a lot of times in these situations in sports, I think it's better just go ahead and move on.
Yeah, I agree. When it's just such a reduced role from what the hope was. A year ago, it's like, is this guy going to make, be the guy? And they finally found someone and he's going to get a $250 million contract too. Hey, I guess he can hang around. Yeah, I think it's better for both sides a lot of times to switch it up. Some people talk about, having him as the 3. I guess. Dustin from Hopkinsville says, I think Levis will be here too. They're talking too much about him to be dropping him, definitely in the back of their head. I say keep him, draft Howard, go get Cousins. Levis is the 3rd. So just remember with the talking about him thing. I mean, the Falcons are talking about, well, Kirk Cousins, yeah. And he's not going to be there.
Right.
Until something happens, that's just what you do. And I'm not saying that the Titans are 100%. They know for sure Levis won't be here, but I wouldn't read too much into them talking about him now. Right now, he's he's under contract. They don't have other options. So if someone asks him about Will Levis, he's got to get better. He's going to do all he can. We believe whatever. You're going to say the right things.
Well, and again, they've asked about, Mike Borgonzi has talked about giving Will Levis every opportunity and all these things. They're saying all the right stuff. But go look at Brian Callahan's comments immediately after the year in his season-ending press conference. He's like, "Yeah, we got to get better quarterback play, and we're going out to look for a quarterback." Like they made no bones about what they're doing. They're going to look for another quarterback.
Yeah, and then the question is just if then Levis is still in the equation at all or not. But I'm with you. I think it's better for both parties for that to not happen. But we don't know. We don't know what they're going to do, who they're going to get, who they can get.
Yeah, well, and a texter says there aren't many backups that I would take over Levis. I hear the thought process behind that, but I think it depends on what you want. Like, what do you want from your backup quarterback? Because look, Levis could go out there. We've seen it. We saw it even this year. He had some games, not enough, obviously, but some games where he was slinging it around and he looked good. He made some throws that not a lot of quarterbacks in the league can make. Like, there's still a lot physically there that I think you like. The problem that I have with him being a backup, like, I need my backup quarterback to come in and to be in control and to protect the football. And he has not displayed that he can protect the football. Now, can you get better in that? Yeah, I guess. But, like, how many people get, like, dramatically better at that? It doesn't happen a ton. It does happen, but it doesn't happen a ton. So, like, I want my backup quarterback to be somebody that could come in and take care of the football. And yeah, I'd love for my backup quarterback to be able to win games, but I think a big reason that some backup quarterbacks in this league are able to come in and win games is that they protect the football. And they don't have, I mean, how many backups are coming in and throwing for 450 and slinging it all over the yard? Just doesn't happen very often in this league.
Yeah, you throw a little Fitz magic in there. No, it's like if I had to choose between these two guys, like, this is your starting quarterback and you got to see what you have and you're going for high ceiling and all that. If I'm choosing between Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, I'm going to take Levis because I know what Rudolph is. If I'm choosing between Levis and Rudolph for my QB2, I'm going to take Rudolph because I know what Rudolph is. He's a safe, solid backup. So that's the problem is, like, Levis to me, I mean, he's going to be someone's, like, backup next year. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point down the road, he gets another chance to start, hopefully for him, he does. It might be one of those, a couple weeks of spot starting situation, but yeah, I mean, he's the kind of high risk, high reward player that a lot of teams are like, yeah, that's not what I want in QB2.
Right. Now, I say all this, how attractive is Will like, if the Titans decide that they want to move on from him? I mean, you're going to try to get something for him. Now, the trade for him would be not a huge return, obviously. But how many teams would give up a, I don't know, 6th to go get Will Levis? Like we're making the natural connection now that Liam Cohen is the head coach in Jacksonville because they work together, that could be a fit. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. I have no idea what their plans are going to be at backup quarterback there. But I would wonder, like, if the Titans do want to move on from him, how many suitors would there be this offseason for him at some point for somebody to take a shot?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, there was something, maybe a 6, I guess. I don't think you'd be talking about a robust market. Texture says Levis better than Sanders. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It also says TD's the only one I've heard talking highly of Sanders. I watch ESPN, listen to the analysts calling the station, heard non-positive stuff about Sanders in the first round. Well, I've said if I were taking one of these two quarterbacks, I would take Sanders. I've heard other people. I think the consensus would be Ward better prospect, but there's TD's not on an island in liking Sanders better than Ward.
I got one text that says, I don't understand the hate on Levis. He's a good quarterback. Yep, he's made mistakes, but he was also a rookie that could not train under a veteran quarterback. If he could train under a veteran, have a better line and better receivers, he'd be good. This is from an unnamed texter on the text line.
Who was the quarterback when he was a rookie? Tannehill's pretty good.
Yeah.
Quarterback to learn from. No,
Tannehill not doing a whole lot of mentoring.
Doesn't like the mentor.
Doesn't like the mentor.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, I don't think it's hopeless for Levis in the NFL by any means, but after last season, I also like someone saying I don't understand the hate on Levis. He's a good quarterback. I gotta question that.
That's you can think he's got potential, and that's fine. But he is objectively not a good quarterback right now. Like the numbers are what they are. He's not a good quarterback right now. Doesn't mean he can't ever be one at some point, but right now he is not a good quarterback.
Yeah, you can't put the entirety of his 2024 season on everybody else.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Take more of your thoughts on Will Levis. Plus, NFL.com down on a recent Titans draft pick. We'll get into that coming up next as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Todd Richards, Predators assistant coach, scheduled to join us coming up at 7:30. I was looking at NFL.com last night, Joe. You know, it's that time of year. Everybody's together at the Super Bowl, and never know what interesting stories people may find there. Like we had, Josh Jacobs of the Packers yesterday got on radio screaming about how they need to find number one wide receiver. It's fun.
No offense to our guys. I love them, but they suck.
No offense to any of our guys, but we really need to find somebody better at wide receiver, which I don't disagree with. But
I love you guys.
Was kind of stunned he said it.
I love you guys, but you're not very good.
So they've done this on NFL.com. They've done this redraft of the 2024 rookie class. So Ali Bonpuri and Tom Blair put this together at NFL.com. And it's like basically the thought process behind it was like, if you're the Bears, would you still take Caleb Williams or would you take Jaden Daniels? And they've gone with Jaden Daniels in this at number one, which I think very difficult to argue that right now with the way that he's played.
Anybody saying otherwise is full of crap.
I agree.
Now.
I agree. So they've gone Jaden Daniels at 1 with Chicago, Caleb Williams at 2 with Washington. Now, I'm not going to sit here and go through like all of their redrafts here. Like the first 4 picks are quarterbacks. Bo Nix has moved up to number 4 where Denver can trade up with them now. They've had the Titans trading back in this thing with the Raiders. So there's all this movement that goes on here. But the point is, like, I'm going through this redraft that they've put together, and I was curious when I saw it. I was like, all right, they've gone through the whole first round here. Like, where is J.C. Latham? So I'm looking, and I get all the way through the end of the first round, and J.C. Latham, not there. J.C. Latham is not a part of their 2024 redraft of the first round of the draft. Now, there is a Titan who is. They've got at number 32 via trade back with Kansas City, the Arizona Cardinals selecting T'Vondre Sweat at the end of the first round. So they do have They have Sweat in the first round. They do not have J.C. Latham. Are they too down on J.C. Latham after 1 year? Or with the way that J.C. Latham played, which I would describe, Joe, as I thought there was a lot of good from Latham. I thought toward the end of the year particularly, it got worse with Latham, and it kind of felt like he hit a wall, and we'll see what that means for him moving forward. But apparently the NFL.com folks pretty down on J.C. Latham. Your thoughts?
That's interesting. I guess if I would have, you told me about this exercise in advance, I would have guessed, he'd be like late in the first round. But you know what? Look, it's not like, look, in the first round, you're hoping for an impact, really good, especially that point of the first round. But even in the first round in general, you're hoping for an impact player right away. And I'm with you. I think that 2-3 years from now, you could go back to this. If you did one of these like 4 or 5 years later, I think we could be in a situation where he would be a first round pick. It's the first year for a rookie offensive lineman switching sides. And I'm far from giving up on him, but yeah, he had some rough games, some rough reps. And I'm going through this now, and there's not too much that's the same, obviously. But there are a lot of guys who are still first round, who have moved up a little bit, first round moved down a little bit.
The Sweat thing was interesting too.
Yeah, that's
apparently
interesting.
Moved up.
They still have the Chiefs taking Worthy. Well,
they
okay.
do.
All right. But yeah, that is interesting.
For those curious, by the way, the Titans moved down in this thing to 13, and they had him taking Marvin Harrison Jr. So
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, well, he's pretty good. Yeah, that's interesting that Sweat would move up. I wouldn't have guessed that.
I wouldn't
either.
either.
I think Sweat. I think Sweat. There's plenty of promise there, for sure. Again, we'll see. We'll see if he can take another step. If he doesn't take another step, he's a solid defensive lineman. I thought like Simmons, for example. You go back to Simmons' rookie year, coming off the ACL, and he really only played in the last few games, but you saw it like, whoa, okay. I wouldn't say that's what we saw with T'Vondre Sweat. Also, T'Vondre Sweat was a second-round pick that some people thought was a reach, so there's a difference in the level of prospect. But yeah, that's a little surprising to me.
At the end of the day, like, it doesn't really matter what the NFL.com people think or the redraft or all that, but I bring it up because I think it does highlight an interesting question, like from the Titans' perspective on Latham. Like if you're Bill Callahan and Brian Callahan looking at his first year, how do you feel about it? Like, are you still convinced after 1 year that he can be an elite left tackle in the league? Because keep in mind, when you draft somebody at number 7 overall, that's what you need them to be. You need him to be an upper echelon left tackle in the league. And they made the decision to take him from right tackle that he played in college and put him on the left side. And again, like I thought he had plenty of games, moments, reps this year where it was good. Like you could see it and you're like, wow, like he looks pretty stout over on the left side. And then again, there were some times where he kind of looked lost out there. And I thought in particular, the worrisome part for me was I did feel like it got a little worse as the year went on. So I'm curious from the Titans perspective, when you sift through all of it, what's your viewpoint on Latham after 1 year? Do you still have a lot of confidence that he's your foundational franchise left tackle? Or are you kind of rethinking that right now and maybe open to the idea that some have tossed out already this offseason where maybe move him back over to the right and go address left tackle somewhere else? The problem is it's just really hard to do that right now.
Yeah, there's just no clear answer there. You're not doing. I don't think you're doing that well enough in free agency to be like, oh yeah, we've got our left tackle. And if you're going to do that, you got to do it in the draft. And it doesn't make sense where they are. Even if they move down a little bit, it doesn't make sense to do it there. So I don't think that's going to happen. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see. They have to obviously get another tackle. They have to get another starting level tackle, and then they can figure it out. But I think with Latham, it's hope. It's the same thing with Skoronski. It's just another year down the road. And I think you could say Skoronski took a step from rookie to second year. I think Skoronski is interesting because I see a wide range of opinions on him. I heard somebody the other day say, I don't remember who this was, but maybe it was Trevor Maddich, but somebody was like, yeah, I don't think it was him, but someone was like, well, his pass blocking is pretty good, but the run blocking is where Skoronski really, and I'm like, see, that's not what I see. I see him as a mauler in the run game who at times really struggles in the pass pro. But I think with both of them, you're just like, you're hoping that they get better and keep getting better together as a unit, better because Bill Callahan is a great offensive line coach, because certainly right now, neither of those guys are players that like they would not be in any conversation to be Pro Bowlers. And you have so many other things to fix on your roster, and you need some things like this to break your way in terms of player development.
Well, and you need some young guys that are foundational pieces. Like it's one thing to be drafted to be one, but you need to actually turn into one, right? Like they need some of their forget like this year's draft with quarterback. They need a Skoronski to really be, heading into next year or something you feel great about at left guard. And maybe he doesn't ever live up to being the number 11 overall pick. But again, at this point, I would settle for him if I'm a Titans fan, being a really, really good starter. Like I would settle for that right now. You need J.C. Latham to be a guy that you look at it by the end of next season, Joe, and say, that right there is our left tackle for the next 10 years. You need that to happen if you're the Titans next year.
Right. You look at any position. How many people right now on this roster are you like, okay, that young player is definitely going to be in place for a long time?
I don't think it exists on this roster right now. Now there's some guys that have a chance.
Like Sweat,
right?
Latham, Skoronski.
Yeah, like they've got a chance.
You hope, I guess you could say, look at Brownlee and say, he could be a starting corner here for a long time. It's
slim pickings.
Yes.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll be joined by Todd Richards, Fred's assistant coach, coming up next. The Rob Rant at 7:45, and Charles Robinson will be with us at 8 o'clock. All that ahead, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-1063 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll have the Rob rant coming up here in just a few minutes, where I will attempt to really settle, I think, a cultural debate. We'll get into that
Oh, okay.
a little bit later in the program. Tune in 94.9 The Fan tonight for Vanderbilt women's basketball. Commodores taking on Texas with an 8 o'clock tip-off pregame show beginning at 7:45. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 94.9thefan.com. Vanderbilt women's basketball presented by Athletes Unlimited Pro Basketball coming to Nashville's Municipal Auditorium February 5th through March the 2nd. Go to auprobasketball.com for more details and to purchase tickets. Maddie on the text line talking about going back to the Skoronski discussion, says PFF, for what it's worth, has Peter at 12th in the league in pass blocking grades and 106th in run blocking. Going back to the pass blocking, run blocking conversation. PFF, according to those numbers, a better pass blocker. That's surprising to me.
Yeah. I don't. Okay. I don't know. If that's the case, I don't know, Maddie, if you have the year before, but if that's the case, then I think you would say he improved as a pass blocker dramatically from rookie year and regressed as a run blocker.
I guess.
Right?
I mean, look, I know the PFF grades, they can say what they will. That's fine. I know that I've seen Skoronski and Latham both together have some pretty darn impressive run reps out there. Now, look, you can find that. We talk about Dillard all the time, right? Like, you can find some impressive pass sets from Andre Dillard if you want to look hard enough. It wasn't like he was just a total revolving door over there.
Every single play.
It was just when it was bad, boy, was it bad with Andre Dillard.
And it was bad too often.
So you can make the same case for, like, you can find good run blocking reps from a lot of guards in this league. It doesn't mean that you're a great run blocking guard all the time just because you've got some reps.
I just feel like you could see movement, over there, and there were times when he just was very physical, and I just feel like, I'm not going to talk about his fat feet, but I just feel like it's at times.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah, fat feet. But I just feel like at times, it was real bad on the pass pro. But I'm not going to pretend that I went through like whatever PFF's people did and, graded every rep. So, but the bottom line is both of them need to get better at both things, and they need to be a reliable duo over there. And at least that takes care of one little part of your football team that otherwise needs so much help, which is like why Lenny says, as long as everybody concedes the fact the Titans are going to suck again, we can move on with getting the best players available and build a team for the future. In other words, don't use all that capital on a QB.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we talk all the time about fixing right tackle and fixing the offensive line. Well, those two have to be a big part of this, right? Like you've got to see continued improvement. Because, I mean, that side right now, I would not say is fixed. Now, you feel good about, I think, the potential of those two together and what that can mean long term. This is also, I think, Joe, an offseason and a training camp next year and a development program where you need to see the Bill Callahan part of this shine through. Like, there needs to be a dramatic jump from year 1 to year 2 from J.C. Latham. That's what you brought Bill Callahan in for. He's one of the greatest offensive line coaches of all time. And this is your evaluation. Like, he was a big part of the evaluation of J.C. Latham. I said it earlier. I'll say it again. You need to walk out of next season and one of the things that we need to be talking about on this show when the Titan season ends next year is J.C. Latham is going to be a very good left tackle around here for a long time. And if that's not the case at the end of the next year, to me, that's very disappointing. Very disappointing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you need some of these things to break your way. Look, Taylor Lewan, the last great left tackle the Titans had, and I do think he was great for a few years. He was not early. He was not at all. And there was all kinds of stuff going on. And, they were a terrible team, kind of similar, right? Basically about a decade ago. They were terrible. People questioned him. Should he move to the right side? Take the cap, take the C off his jersey, malarkey. There going into the draft of 9 years ago, there was a major question about Taylor Lewan. He went in and, told John Robinson, I'm your left tackle. And he had a great run for his career, I mean, this is just 1 year for Latham, but it's just an example of it doesn't always happen right away.
Right.
And you can improve in the NFL. It actually is possible.
Anthony on the YouTube chat, going back to the redraft on NFL.com, was asking where Joe Alt was taken. He was 6th in the redraft. So he was the first non-QB taken.
But it was the Chargers again.
It was the Chargers again. So I guess there was some sort of trade back.
They moved down, I guess,
a
little bit.
But so the first 5 picks of the redraft here were all the quarterbacks, right? So it's, Daniels, Williams, May, Nix, and Penix were your first 5. And then Joe Alt, the first non-QB.
Wouldn't it be great to see the redraft of this year a year in advance?
Yes, it would.
Will we see, Sanders, Ward, Milroe, Dart, McCord all in the top 5?
Howard. Yep.
Yeah. Probably not. Or will we see no quarterbacks at all in the first round? That's possible.
Well,
I bet you the redraft of 2023.
Yeah.
I'm
trying to think of who said
easily.
it. Stillman had somebody on this week, and I can't remember if it was the analytics guy that we were talking about earlier or if it was somebody else. But they basically said they wouldn't be surprised if they saw a Kenny Pickett style draft this year. They're still not convinced that it's just going to be Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders in the top 5. Everybody just assumes it's going to be at some point, which I don't know. I don't know how that's going to shake out. I do remember that just because the conversation around the quarterbacks is one thing heading into the draft doesn't mean it plays out that way. I bring this example up all the time. It was the morning of the draft, and there were still people with mock drafts and out there talking about Malik Willis going number 2 overall.
Yeah.
And he ended up going at number 86.
Yeah, I guess I could see it. I'd be surprised. I feel like somebody is going to talk themselves into Cam Ward.
I agree.
High. But I'm sure a lot of the conversation in any of these markets, Giants, Raiders, all these QB needy teams is the same thing, which is don't just take the QB because you have to have a QB now. That's what bad teams do. Everybody knows that, right? This is not some big league secret. It's just when it comes down to it, you talk yourself into people. Cam Ward is definitely the type of prospect. Someone's going to talk themselves into him for sure.
I would agree. JC in Goodlettsville says, I'm trading back, taking a pass rusher and a left tackle the first 2 picks and moving Latham over to right. We've heard that a lot. A lot of people have talked about the idea of moving Latham back to the right side. I don't necessarily hate it if you have a solution at left tackle that you feel good about. The problem is, and again, all it takes is one person in the draft. But generally speaking, Joe, this does not seem to be anywhere near the level of tackle draft class that even last year's was with Alt and Latham and all those guys. It feels like there's not a high level of confidence among the draft gurus anyway, that this is going to be a great tackle class.
Yeah. And you may have 2 Hall of Famers out of them, but it's definitely a less highly regarded tackle group than those guys were last year. And Latham, there were people going gaga about Latham. And again, the question was right, left, but so there were people that were saying he is the best one. And I think maybe the Titans would have taken Alt if he was there, but he wasn't there. Maddie says Latham is 59th in pass blocking, 93rd in run blocking on PFF. Given that crap sandwich on the right side, I can't believe Pollard ran for more than 1,000 yards. Yeah.
Kind of is amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe Tony Pollard should have been MVP conversation.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, 93rd red. I don't know, man. That's not what I saw. But again, I can't sit here and say that I went through every rep. I also can't sit here and say that I really give much of a crap about PFF, and I never have. I'm sorry.
You have been consistent on that front.
Yeah. I mean, especially though.
No disrespect to Chris Collinsworth.
Yeah, especially the instant game grades. Those are just dumb. I mean, they really are. Yeah, look, they do some things compiling. There's some things you can do if you go through film, you can count up some things, and there's some value in the data.
Yeah.
The analysis, man, I don't know. Now, there's so many times when you may think an offensive lineman's doing this or that, and you don't know what the assignment is. That really does happen a lot.
I got a text that says, we keep talking about trading back, but what teams are wanting to trade up? Which, again, we talk about that. You can want to trade back. You don't always have the opportunity to do so. And it would take one of those teams that you were just talking about, whether that's the Giants or the Raiders or whoever, that fall in love with a Cam Ward or a Shedeur Sanders. And there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. Like, could somebody want to move up? I heard somebody bring this up yesterday. Like, if the Browns trade Myles Garrett, would that be enough for them to try to move up to stop the Titans from taking Abdul Carter or anybody else from taking Abdul Carter at number 1? Maybe. Although if I'm the Titans and I love Abdul Carter, I'm like, nah, I'll just stick right here and take Abdul Carter. But I don't know. Like, is the Myles Garrett thing going to influence Cleveland to try to really get in there for Abdul Carter? Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know. But are you trading up? Like, the trade up for the non-quarterback, especially the number 1 pick, is just so rare.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't really happen.
Doesn't happen much. And to this texter, I say this every year. People are like, yeah, it's trade back. I'm like, okay, well, why does someone want to get to 12? Or why does someone want to get to 17? When you're 1, usually you're going to have the opportunity. It may not be exactly what you want, but you're going to have multiple teams at least giving you a call, right?
Yeah, I just tried to drink some coffee and it went down my shirt. So there's that too. Have the Rob rant coming up next. Take your thoughts. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Charles Robinson will be with us at 8 o'clock. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game.
Don't make me angry.
Sometimes you have to tell someone to pound sand.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
This is the Rob Rant. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
How much signal I need to cut across 8 lane? None? I turn now. Good luck, everybody else.
What are you talking about, you psycho? You gotta drive! Not everybody knows how to do everything. Driving isn't the only thing. Just move your car! Okay. I don't know how I can. Oh my God, just grab the steering wheel. Fine! Ow! It hurt? Yeah, it does.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rob Rant here on the program. You can check it out every morning, either the Rex Rant or the Rob Rant. I feel like there's some, cultural issues that I need to tackle today here on the program.
Before you do, what was that from?
I have no idea.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
I can't control what Keezer mashes together back there, but I have no clue. So I was a little bit sheltered growing up in terms of traveling around. Like, basically, if I was traveling somewhere as a child and or a young adult, it was to Gatlinburg, to some baseball tournament somewhere around the Southeast, or in Florida. Like, that's basically where I went growing up. Now, as I became, more of an adult and started to pay for my own things, ended up in Chicago doing some work, ended up in New York, all these different places in different parts of the country. And one of the things that was really fascinating to me, particularly like in Chicago and New York, some of your bigger northern cities, was like, man, these people honk at each other a lot. Like, there's a lot of honking going on. Like, the first 5 minutes I was in New York, I got out of a taxi, and I guess I didn't retrieve my bag quickly enough from the taxi in New York. And this dude just started laying down on the horn on me, to the point where I grabbed my bag, threw it straight up in the air, and walked and slammed the hood of his car. I was like, you ready to fight? Because that's to me what it is. Like, in the South, you honk your car, you better be ready to fight. That's what it was when I was growing up. So I'm sitting here the other day. I'm navigating through the McDonald's drive-thru, and I'm just pulling in. I'm not in the drive-thru yet. I'm kind of wheeling around, and I just drive. I have the right of way, and this person is trying to jet out of the drive-thru line, and then honks at me because I'm in the road that they're trying to cut in front of. So they just lay on their horn, and I roll my window down, stick my head out the window, and I say, "Hey, you moron! What are you honking at? I have the right of way." And come to find out, it's like some 70-year-old lady just laying their horn on me at the driveway, which I felt bad about yelling at her in the aftermath of that. But to me, it's been like, if you honk your horn to signal that you're mad about something, you better be prepared to fight. Apparently everywhere else, honking the horn is just a thing. People just do that. But it is a character flaw of mine. If you honk your horn at me, it sets me off. I don't know what it is about it. So my question is this like a regional thing? Do people just say, yep, we just honk at each other? That's what we do. Or am I a psychopath? And this is just a personal problem that I've really got to work on as we move forward here.
I was going to say, it might be a little bit of your affinity for throwing hands thing. Might be, maybe a little bit.
In fairness, I always generally stop myself before it comes to that.
That's good.
Generally.
So I think actually that I think there are levels to this. So look, I've been in the situation where I get distracted. I'm at a light. It turns green. I'm sitting there talking to my kid, and it's been 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And someone, beep, no, that's my bad. Yeah, that's fine. I don't care. Like, there's that,
I think that's,
to get someone, just to get, go,
get
come
the
on,
attention.
dude. Yeah, then that's a quick honk. The loud,
laying on the horn.
Laying on the horn, aggressive honk. I mean, I don't know that it's necessary. I don't know that I would go with it's an invitation to fight, but it's definitely anger.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's at least okay, the next step is going to be angry words, right?
Yes.
Hopefully, it doesn't get to throwing hands and, whoever's packing heat or whatever.
Yeah.
You gotta
watch yourself nowadays.
Yeah, you gotta watch yourself. But so it's funny you say that because, as every once in a while I talk about my 3 years in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
If you go downtown Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, at least in the mid 80s, here's what you hear. Beep, 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 all day long. Nothing. It's just like there's not even any reason to honk at people. And it's just we have horns, and it's a really rich country, and everybody has awesome Mercedes, and we're just going to honk. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is definitely regional, cultural, things like that. the laying on the horn, you better be sure that, like, you better be prepared for, like, someone to be mad at you back. So you better be sure that you're right if you do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like the laying again, I was walking around like New York and Chicago. She's like, man, these people just honk at each other all the time.
Yeah.
Like, that gets
Well,
annoying.
taxi driver. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very aggressive, and they are. It's just like, I mean, it's incredible.
It was a little bit of a culture shock the first time I experienced it, and now when I'm there, I'm just like, okay, it's just apparently what these
you
people
just
do.
know that that's what it's, and if you're in a taxi there, you also know they're going to do some driving stuff that you can't believe they're doing.
Yeah.
And you need to be buckled up and ready.
Exactly.
And they're going to be honking and just blowing by people, and it's absolutely, I mean, it's like playing Frogger if you're trying to walk.
We do have one vote for I'm 100% a personal psychopath on the text line, which is, look, I'm leaving the door open for that. Like, I'm not saying that that's not the case. It could be. Brock on the text line says it really depends on the type of honk. If someone honks behind you and then makes a hand gesture, you are 100% throwing hands. This is from Brock on the text line.
Oh, like a hand gesture, like a
middle finger victory salute, or what kind of hand gesture?
Okay, that's a hand gesture we're saying. Yeah. Yeah, it was for sure. Again, it's like, what are they honking about? Again, if it's your fault, like that, what I'm laying out, which I've done it to people, I almost never honk, but it's usually that, right? I mean, I honk if someone cuts in front of me, and it's like, I just had to slow down to prevent me from killing you. So I'm going to burn as you go by, right? But you're passing each other and all that. Yeah, the length of the honk. Yes, Keith, exactly. The length of the honk. If it's beep, beep, come on.
Yeah,
fine.
Like, I don't know what it is, but the extended laying on the horn that lasts for like 2 or 3 seconds, it just lights a fire inside of me. I don't get it. It's apparently something I need to work on.
I mean, Adam in Portland's on your side.
What'd he say?
In the South, honking isn't just a sound; it's a challenge. If you honk at someone, you're not just expressing frustration; you're initiating a potential showdown.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right.
So maybe you're not a psycho.
There you go. Maddie says, if you honk at me, I better have done something stupid so I can give the humble my bad wave. If not, be prepared. That is kind of the worst too, is like when somebody honks at you and you're like, yeah, man, I feel you. That was on me.
Yeah. I think you got to do that. You got to be, if you're willing to be mad at people, then when you screw up, do my bad.
Yeah. I've never really thought about being, I guess taking personal responsibility and accountability in this discussion. But when I leaned my head out of the window the other day to yell at the 70-year-old lady, that's when I thought, all right, this probably needs to be something I work on moving forward.
At least you didn't silently just get out of your car and get in her face.
I know, but it's like, you are turning onto my street and you think this is my fault. Why are you honking at me? Once you learn how to drive.
Did she what was her reaction back to you?
She then waved at me in apology, and then I felt even worse. I was like, good God.
Sorry, scary man. Okay, I'm gonna leave now.
I rounded the corner. I was like, geez, I just yelled at an old lady.
Oh,
good.
boy.
Good stuff.
It happens.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us coming up next. We'll get into all things NFL, the Super Bowl, the Myles Garrett situation, what's going to happen with Matt Stafford, all that and more coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com and welcome in our friend Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. Charles, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, gents. And, I just remembered, I forgot to give Joe the business last week on the show when I think it was Joe Rexrode who asked me who's going to be the Patriots offensive coordinator. And I told him Josh McDaniels, and he threw a fit.
Yes.
And what happened, Joe?
Should have been Matty Pat. Should have been Matty Pat again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, have some of that, Rexrode.
I think I gave you the business more for your take that it's an awesome hire. And yeah, it may be. Maybe I'm a little down on McDaniels.
It wasn't a hire at that point, though. It wasn't. It was you. You were just it's inexplicable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's better than. I mean, it could have been Todd Downing, who is the receivers coach.
Let's say he got hired. He did.
I would take McDaniels over Todd Downing. I will say that.
It's good.
Fair enough. How you guys doing today?
How's New Orleans?
Good. How's New Orleans down there?
I don't know. It's fine. I'm not. I am probably one of the rare exceptions amongst journalists who doesn't. I'm not like a big New Orleans Super Bowl site fan. I'm really not. Like it's fine. It's okay. I mean, it's.
Best food in this. It's the best food in the country, man.
Okay. No Nashville though.
No, I mean from a food standpoint, yeah. I mean the food's fantastic, but I don't know. I prefer Miami. I thought LA was great. It's way more spread out. I mean, I guess it all depends what you want logistically. Everything's close here. Food's good.
Charles is just counting down the days until he gets to spend Super Bowl week with us here in Nashville.
Yeah, it's coming, man. It's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's going to be fun. That'll be exciting when that happens. I'm very much looking forward to that. Sleeping on Joe's couch.
That's right.
He'll be thrilled.
That's right. So, Charles, apparently Myles Garrett has had enough of being a member of the Cleveland Browns. You're talking about one of the best defensive players in the league. He's had 14 or more sacks for 4 consecutive seasons. He's 29 years old. So, how do you think this all ends up playing out with Myles Garrett, and what do you think the market for a player of his caliber is going to look like this offseason?
Well, I give him credit because I think he's articulated it pretty well. The reasons why he wants a trade, and he's been very clear. Look, he wants to win a Super Bowl. I think there was what ultimately happened was when the Browns season ended and Deshaun Watson had suffered the second torn Achilles, and it was pretty clear that they were going to have to remix the quarterback room. And Andrew Berry, the general manager, came out and said the quarterback room is going to look different. It felt like a rebuild, felt like another reboot, at least, or at the very least, a mini reboot. And Garrett's been through that, and I think he's just frustrated. And I thought it was interesting that he said, it wasn't about Cleveland to Canton. That's not what his goal was. And it's to say that as a Cleveland Brown, I think there's a little Joe Thomas in that statement. I think as everybody in the organization knows, that's a guy that should have won a Super Bowl, was a, absolutely great player at his position for the longest time in the NFL, and just went through reboot after reboot after reboot. And, Garrett doesn't want that. And, I've heard some people say, well, he took his time after the season ended. The Browns knew pretty quickly that he was going to want out of there. But their standpoint is, look, you're every year, if not defensive player of the year, you're in the top 2 or 3 players. They feel like he's got 4 or 5 years left of prime, and they don't want to move off him. And they're very adamant about it. And I think part of the reason why I went public was because of the fact that the Browns were going to be vocal about the fact that they're not dealing him. So I don't know how this works. I mean, from a financial standpoint, the Browns really can't do it, because if you were going to trade him because of the cap hit you would take, you'd have to push more Watson money backward. You'd have to redo Denzel Ward's contract, push more money backward. You'd probably have to cut a couple of players. So just from a pain standpoint, the Browns are sitting there going, we can't destroy the team to trade, oh, by the way, our best player, who we don't even want to get rid of at this point. And, Andrew Berry's stance is, if you want to throw a couple first round picks on the table, I'm going to say no. And that's where we stand right now. But I think Garrett's taking advantage of the window that he has right now, because he knows, look, teams, if there is a team inclined to make a big run in terms of a trade, you need to announce now, like, hey, come get me before you go to free agency and try to fill that position, or before you start to focus in on the draft and maybe go after a defensive end in the draft. Come get me. I'm ready to go somewhere else and compete for a championship. I don't know how it'll turn out. I think from a financial standpoint, I just don't know how the Browns could make that work unless they could somehow claw back some of Deshaun Watson's money. But even that, you don't get that until future years. It's a tough spot, and I get where Garrett's coming from, but I think with the Browns, the way the Browns look at it, it's, you need to be a part of us turning around. And I think the very small hope maybe in Cleveland is, if we get the right quarterback in here, even if it's a rookie, maybe we have a situation where it's like when CJ Stroud got into Houston and pretty quickly, there was traction there. If this turns into a nasty holdout, say he doesn't come in camp, say he says, I'm going to sit out games, maybe the Browns could show enough on the field early on with a different quarterback that Garrett reconsiders.
So you're saying the Lions will not be having Myles Garrett and Aiden Hutchinson as bookend?
No, it's funny because like every defensive player that becomes potentially available, Lions fans are clamoring for it. No, I mean, the Lions cap in 2026 is a train wreck. Like when you look at it, the amount of money they have dedicated to like 4 players is unreal. And, they're going to have to extend Aiden Hutchinson after the 2025 season. I think, he's that rare defensive player that you're going to give him the quarterback nod and redo his deal, or at least extend his deal after year 3. So it's just, I don't, at this stage, I think if you go and you trade for Garrett, you're probably redoing his deal anyway. And what are you bumping him to? Is he going to make $40 million a season? Because that's where the edge rushers are ultimately going. And I think Garrett's also looking at it as, okay, so Hutchinson's going to get his extension after 2025. Micah Parsons coming. Like that $40 million floor for the best pass rushers, I absolutely think that's coming. So I think there's some consideration there too.
There's obviously lots of potential movement here. A couple of Rams, and we've talked some. I think we were going to pick this up last week on Stafford.
Yeah.
Not that, I don't think there's any realistic way that he would ever look here. But Stafford, What are they doing? And then obviously Cooper Kupp. What's the feeling around the league about him and how much he has left and who might be interested in him?
Well, the Rams were prepared for this with Stafford going back to camp, when they redid his deal. I think I was there the first day in camp that he was on the field throwing again. And I talked to somebody inside the organization then, and I'm like, and it hadn't come out yet, but they told me at the time, well, okay, we worked it out. So we moved guaranteed money into 2024 to basically give both sides flexibility in 2025. If Matt decides I want to retire, he'll have that option, and he'll have already gotten his guaranteed money moved up to 2024. If we decide we want to move on, there's not going to be, some monster cap hit that we have to deal with. And if we both come to an agreement that, hey, maybe it's best to make a left turn at quarterback now, we can either, deal you, or what's more likely, cut you, and you're going to end up going wherever you want in the NFL. They were prepared for this. And so I think right now, I think it's in limbo. I think it's very possible that Stafford, though, becomes available. I think, there's a very good chance that they end up cutting him. And I think when you look at that situation, there's going to be a number of teams. I mean, not just Tennessee. I mean, Pittsburgh, they're going to be a litany of potential options for him. I think there would be an appetite for him as well. But I don't think the Rams have completely closed the door either. General Manager Les Snead and head coach Sean McVay neither have come out and spoken in any absolutes, but they also haven't committed to him. And so I think if the number potentially was right, and they also look afield and see that we don't see our quarterback, resolution or maybe we want to go and draft, say, like a Jackson Dart or someone, potentially in the second round, or maneuver ourselves to be able to draft a quarterback. And then, we bring Matt back and we figure it out from there on a year by year basis. I still think that's how it could resolve itself. Cooper Kupp won't be there. Cooper was available at the deadline. I think that they became a little, they were sticklers about price because they felt like they could still compete if they didn't move him. So they wouldn't, the price tag, it was ridiculous. I think it was like at one point a first. I think you ultimately probably could have gotten them for a second and maybe another pick, and no team was willing to do that. But they knew, hey, if it doesn't resolve itself at the trade deadline, if we keep him and we try to compete this season, he's not. I think they feel like the bang for the buck just isn't there. And when he came back late in the season, his production, he clearly is no longer the number one. Puka Nacua, far and away, is the number one receiver there. And I think they know if we move on from him, if we can potentially get a trade partner for, say, a 6th round pick at this point, they're going to pay $12.5 million. They'll probably fill a number 2 wide receiver role, and maybe some team feels like he can still be productive. We'll see. I don't know. It's going to take the right team, but there are teams out there that I think could use a solid number 2, and $12.5 million. If you really think you can at least get number 2 production out of him, it's a solid price tag. And, but I think that process is really just kind of starting for them. And, but he won't be there. I knew this. You always, with the Rams, you always kind of know a year early, because I remember Jalen Ramsey, it was like, I started hearing they're not going to pay him. He's going to want a new deal. They'll move off of him. You knew kind of a year early. You knew what his last year was going to be. And prior to this season, it kind of felt that way with Kupp. And pretty quickly, once the season started, it was like, yeah, this will be it for Cooper. He's going to be elsewhere in 2025.
So, Charles, lots of conversation around the officiating this week down at the Super Bowl. Roger Goodell was asked about officiating, and the NFL Referees Association, Scott Green, came out and talked about it. How ridiculous it is to presume that the officials are basically in favor of a team out there. So, what do you make of the conversation around this, and I guess the need that it felt like the NFL Referees Association had to feel like they had to respond to all this?
Well, I think people are there's sensitivity now. Like, people are just getting sick of hearing, well, it's the Chiefs are getting all the calls. And I thought it was interesting. Someone talked to Belichick about it the other day, and Belichick basically is the same deal. It's like, yeah, when we won a lot, everybody said the Patriots, we got all the calls. And it's just germane to when you have a team that's this dominant for this long. I think it's a couple of different things. You're always on prime time, or you're on prime time a lot. You play a lot of huge playoff games. So all these eyeballs are on you. People start nitpicking constantly. But I do think one aspect of this that I think it will be approached in the off season is, and I think Aikman has something to do with this, during the broadcast of the Texans-Chiefs playoff game, Aikman got super critical of officiating, and it was 2 personal fouls that were called. One where Mahomes was in the pocket and he got hit kind of high, which I kind of thought was, it's a judgment call at that point. Like, I didn't think it was that egregious. But then when Mahomes was running around on another play and he slid late and he kind of got caught, I didn't think it was deserving a personal foul penalty. But like, Aikman went off like in the broadcast and was just like calling it terrible. And, that's got to be addressed this off season. That's a huge partner who's just straight up going after your officials really hard. And then after that, I think he went on like the SI Media podcast, and he was like, he brought up gambling, and he's like, yeah, all the money that's on these games, I think the league, owes it to the fans to get it right. And I'm like, man, this dude's going in. Like, he's really, that sticks in the craw for the league, and there's not really anything they can do about it other than press. Obviously, you try to impress on your rights holders. Hey, your flagship, analysts, if you're killing us, that's not, that's a problem.
Well, maybe their officiating should be better.
I mean,
they should officials be more accountable.
I think the late slides, I think that is something that they'll look at, where they're going to say, hey, this idea where you're getting down too late and you're getting hit, we're not going to be, I think that could be adjusted, or there could be more of a emphasis put on that, where quarterbacks know you're not getting these flags. If you're sliding late and you get hit, that's just how it's going to be. So don't be throwing your hands up calling for one, which you do see a lot. And, but I think it was interesting because the Bills game, Cleat Blakeman, right, was like you put him on the crew. And when you looked at Cleat's numbers against the Chiefs, he was like, again, when you looked at like how the calls went in games that he officiated, I think it was 6-5 against the Chiefs, like in terms of the totality of penalties. And I think that was purposeful. There was a reason why they put him on the crew in that Bills game, because they were like, we don't want to deal with this. But then you have
they put a Chiefs hater on the crew.
I mean, from a numbers standpoint, I do think they did that to make it a defensible point, where they're like, look, you can't tell us that you don't have an officiating crew that doesn't have really even numbers when it comes to how it plays out for the Chiefs. But then you run into the ball spotting issue, which Roger got asked about on Monday. And, he brought up this idea that the technology is more difficult. It's not like tennis balls. It's an oblong ball. It's different. But he made it pretty clear they're going to try and push maybe other elements of technology, get better at the ball spotting. And look, man, I don't know what to tell you about the Chiefs thing. The fans tend to believe it. I'm sure other teams tend to believe it. I heard it about Brady for years. He always gets calls that nobody else does. I think that does happen with stars. They definitely get calls that other stars don't, or that other players don't. But I also think people are just sick of this with the Chiefs, to be completely honest with you. I think people are over it, and they're tired of seeing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. They're tired of seeing them in the AFC title game. And I thought it was interesting, even at one point during the podiums on media night, a media member asked Travis Kelce, if you could ask the media a question, what would it be? And Kelce was like, why are you guys buying into all this flag stuff? And I was like, whoa, I couldn't believe
but it's everywhere. I mean, these guys are getting asked these dumb. I know media day is dumb, but it's like, who's your favorite ref, Patrick? And it's just, it's just.
Yeah. I mean, I get that, but I mean, like, that's one of those things where you're like, it raised my eyebrow, because I'm like, okay, the Chiefs are they're thinking about this. This is on their minds. They have not even been able to shut this out. It's so prominent. And I just thought the whole demeanor of the Chiefs was interesting on Monday. They remind me of when we got to that point with the Patriots, where it was like Super Bowl number 5, Super Bowl number 6, and they just were like, the joy, of the moment did not feel like it was. It's like, for them, they're just like, let's just do this. Come on, let's just play the game. Like, they're done with all the frills of Super Bowl week, and they just want to get onto the game. And I remember when it got like that with the Patriots, where this whole experience just felt rote to them. And I wonder, and I could be completely wrong here, and I'll probably get killed on it because I've said it a few times, I would not be surprised if maybe they came out a little flat in this game, just because when you watch them, they seem annoyed to have to do a lot of the stuff that they're doing. And even when they're having fun, it kind of feels a little pressed. And I think that's what happens when you're in the Super Bowl over and over and over again.
Well, the Eagles are also going to get every call Sunday. So I mean, this has been like the biggest working of the officials in favor of the other team I've ever seen, right? Like, seriously. I mean, that's totally what I expect. Looking forward, Charles, I've just assumed, and I think this is just BS, right, from the union, but I've assumed 18 is obvious. You're not sticking at 17 for long, but there is some rhetoric coming from the player side. Yeah.
Kind of.
You still on that? It's just it's an inevitability.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% happening. And like, I sat in the NFLPA's meeting yesterday and listened to the whole, Lloyd Howell go through the whole song and dance of, nobody wants to play in 18th. Everybody, every player I talked to, nobody wants to play, Jalen Reeves-Mavens, the president of the NFLPA. I mean, they're all saying the same thing. And I'm like, okay, there's a difference between nobody wants to play it and we absolutely are not going to play it. And that's just where this is. The funny thing is, when they say nobody wants to play it, then Lloyd Howell will go through 14 bullet points of that. It's his negotiating list. It's like, here are all the things we need to talk about. And then after these 15 things, then we get to revenue share. I'm like, okay, well, that's what you got, 5 years and until the next CBA. And I think Roger would like to get it on the rails earlier than that and see if maybe they could expand the season, maybe by 2027. But I also think that's part of what Roger's doing, is that when he has an opportunity to bring it up, he does, because he hasn't talked to them. Even the union's like, we haven't had any talks with them about it. Other than like Lloyd Howell's, like the first time I heard about it was when Roger said it on the Pat McAfee show before the draft. And I'm like, why would you even admit that? Like, that's a slap to you that the commissioner basically comes out and says, 18 games is something we're looking at. I think Roger's just trying to draw him into, however he can, trying to draw him into some kind of a dialogue and start working out. But it's 100% going to happen. And even if they put their foot down and said, no way, they just get locked out and they'd lose again. Like I've been through way too many of these labor things over 20 years. They'll never win as a labor organization until they erase games. They're never going to be willing to erase games. And owners know that. And so eventually they'll get to the point where the revenue share will be where it needs to be. They'll kick in some other, things across the broader spectrum of the CBA to make players feel like they're getting somewhat of a deal, and it'll ultimately get passed. So, but the last one was like pulling teeth. So I wouldn't be surprised if the next one, it's sort of the same situation. One thing I will say this too, the PA, when it comes to like where they're at and how they fight, they don't have the same star power. Like there was a time when it was Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees. These were the players who were at the forefront of labor fights. And they were the ones saying, okay, we want to sit down. We're going to put all our big quarterbacks. It was Brady versus the NFL when they dissolved the union, all that stuff. I don't see that anymore. Now it's just, they've kind of lost the star power. It's a lot of rank and file guys that are carrying the weight. I think that resonates a little differently when they really get into this fight in a couple of years.
Very, very interesting. Charles, great stuff as always, man. Enjoy New Orleans. Get you some oysters while you're down there. And we'll talk to you next week.
Maybe a
All right,
beignet.
sounds good, guys. I had Dave Burkett was at dinner with us last night. So we had a good time talking about you. Yeah.
Oh, good. I bet.
Great dinner time conversation.
Only guy to win an intramural football game while he's smoking a cigarette playing quarterback.
Damn right, baby.
The legend lives on. Thank you, Charles.
All right, guys.
See ya.
Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports, our guest, joins us every Thursday morning at 8 o'clock. We'll react to what Charles had to say. Plus, I got a 4-pack of wristbands to give away to the National Wild Turkey Federation Sports Show at Opryland Convention Center, Thursday, February 13th through Saturday, February 15th. Be caller 5, 615-737-1025. Caller 5 will win a 4-pack of wristbands to the National Wild Turkey Federation Sports Show coming up at Opryland Convention Center. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Got some tickets to give away to see Belmont men's basketball as they take on Missouri State at the Curb Event Center this Saturday. Tip-off at 4 o'clock. Be caller 3-615-737-1025. Duncan fans, come experience the new age of Duncan at the grand opening of their newly remodeled Brentwood location at 4930 Thoroughbred Lane tomorrow morning. Duncan will be giving away 100 days of free coffee to the first 100 guests in line, starting at 8 o'clock. Plus, Robby and Rexrode, that is us, will be broadcasting live from 6 to 9 a.m., and we'll have Preds tickets to give away as well. So come hang with us tomorrow at 4930 Thoroughbred Lane in Brentwood at the Duncan.
Can we have some donuts?
I'm going to.
Okay. I'm going to try not to.
I'm not. I'm going on vacation.
You eat
next
mine.
week. I don't care.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
It's time. I'm trying.
I ran a mile yesterday. Does that count?
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that to me, that's like 8 donuts.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? That's not the math, Keezer.
Keezer said, what?
8, right? You burn 8 donuts with each mile you run, I think.
I think that's
right.
how that works.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
I think that's how that works. Thanks to Charles for coming on the show during a busy Super Bowl week for him. The Myles Garrett thing is going to be interesting because as he kind of laid out there, financially, how is Cleveland really going to pull it off? That's interesting to monitor. And again, like if you're Cleveland, we don't want to get rid of you. Why would we want to get rid of Myles Garrett here? So it's going to be really interesting to see how they make all this work and whether or not Myles Garrett is a member of another team by the time training camp rolls around.
Yeah, that was a lot of cold water on the idea of anybody else but Cleveland employing Myles Garrett. Sorry, Lions fans. Interesting too. See, there's an example of the cap conversation. That's a smart conversation, which is, could they, if they did something, can they make something work? Yes, they can make things work. They can kick the can. Also, they're going to cut some mid-level players that they don't want to cut which makes their team weaker because the cap is real. But anyway, just a quick aside there. But that's some cold water on the idea of anyone actually getting it. When you get into trades where like you see what people are throwing around as compensation.
Yep.
It is it does seem a little bit unrealistic. And I think that's exactly the thing with Cleveland is like, I mean, Myles Garrett, I just saw today, he was on Radio Row talking about wanting a quarterback,
Yeah.
And he thought he had one, of course, I'm sure with Deshaun Watson. But if they were to just figure that out, they do have a pretty good roster. I totally
and I still
agree.
think they've got a good head coach.
Yeah. The fact that he survived through all this, yeah, I mean, I guess you could look at them and say that's how incompetent they are. But no, I think it's because he's good and people know he's good. So if you just had like Flacco taking them to the playoffs, if you just had decent QB play, they could be a playoff team in the AFC.
It is interesting to hear Charles talk about Stafford because it wasn't that long ago. It was probably a few weeks ago where it felt like Stafford probably wasn't going anywhere in LA. And he talked about that. And it kind of seems like the tone on that has shifted. As he pointed out, the Rams have not closed the door on the Stafford thing, and he very well could end up back there. But they also really have not expressed anything like they're committing towards Stafford at this point either. And he said, it's likely that he could become a free agent. So maybe that doesn't affect the Titans directly in terms of like, I'm with you. I think Stafford choosing to come here is not at all likely, but it will affect the Titans from the standpoint of if you're looking for a veteran quarterback, well, you add one more to the mix.
Right.
And if he goes somewhere else, that's a job that somebody else on the veteran market does not have.
Exactly. The more people that can come into the market that people are interested in, the better for you. Somebody that was going to go somewhere else may have to go to you now, I mean, that's,
yeah.
So absolutely. If you're the Titans, you're a Titans fan, you're rooting for that to end and for the market to be better. More options for more teams.
More options for more teams. And then the question would be, well, okay, if you're getting rid of Stafford, what are the Rams doing at quarterback, right? Like, what's the next quarterback answer for the Rams? Because, like, you're looking at where they're scheduled to draft right now. I mean, they're 26th. So it's not like you're entering into the mix for Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, I think, at number 26. Now, we know how the Rams have felt about draft picks before. I mean, could they leverage something at some point to try to move up? Maybe. But if it's not going to be Stafford, who's the quarterback in LA, that's also going to be interesting to monitor.
Was last year all one big sharp for dart in
Maybe.
LA?
Maybe.
Charles threw out Dart.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm not excited about that. But yeah, maybe they love Jackson Dart. After Bo Nix last year, I'm open to just somebody I think is very mid.
Yeah.
Being the apple of some team's eye and it working out. And Sean McVay knows quarterbacks. Sean McVay, he moved on from a good quarterback to a better quarterback, won a Super Bowl. We really haven't seen Sean McVay. We haven't seen Sean McVay have his own guy. I mean, Goff was in place with the number one pick, picked by Jeff Fisher prior to him. So he's never actually chosen the young quarterback. So I guess we'll see if he's good at it or not. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I'm that plan because I still think they've got a pretty good roster. And, with good quarterback play, I think they've got a chance to be in the mix. Like the thing is with them this year, when everybody was healthy, like when Kupp was healthy and Nakua was healthy and Stafford was healthy, they're pretty good. I mean, it's why they took Philadelphia to the wire in that game. And I think they had a chance to be a pretty good team. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Stafford. Like if Stafford becomes available, if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm doing everything I can to get him as their quarterback.
I agree. Yeah. And I don't know that he pushes them to the top tier, but they're a team that you have to contend with much more seriously if you're like the rest of the AFC North for sure. If they have Matthew Stafford, I think he still has. I don't see like a big reduction in maybe a little bit in his mobility, which was never amazing in the first place, but maybe a little bit of that. But I feel like the ball's still coming out like a laser there. Throws a bad pick every now and then, but that would absolutely change their trajectory.
615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll take more of your thoughts on the quarterback front, reaction to what Charles Robinson had to say, plus the question we threw out there earlier. Which quarterback could the Titans end up with this offseason that you would absolutely hate if that's the way things play out? More on that coming up next. This week, Stillman & Company, broadcasting live and providing live updates from New Orleans on Radio Row leading up to the big game. Coverage presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Family Leisure, Shane Company, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, and 312 Pizza, and the newcumberland.com. We'll have more with Robby and Rexrode coming up next. 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Tune in to 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville tonight for MTSU men's basketball. Blue Raiders taking on Jacksonville State. Tip-off at 6 o'clock, pregame at 5:30. Coverage also available on the Totally Hits Nashville app and at TotallyHitsNashville.com. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Which quarterback could the Titans end up with this offseason where you would absolutely hate it? Now, we've gone all over the map with that discussion today. My answer was Justin Fields. I don't like that idea. I think a lot of the weaknesses that he has at the quarterback position is what they just dealt with Will Levis. There are some people that have said today that Justin Fields would be like their preferred outcome here, and that would be the quarterback that they would choose. So
I'm more with them than you.
We've gone all over the map on that part of it. We've had a lot of votes for Aaron Rodgers, saying that they don't want Rodgers to be the Titans quarterback here. But I think probably the most popular answer, Joe, that we've had on this discussion is either one of the rookies, Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, has been probably the most popular answer we've had, aside from Will Levis, which, as I discussed earlier in the show, I don't consider that to be overly realistic, that he's the starting quarterback.
No. I do have on the YouTube chat, Avanzis says a QB I would hate to have is Sam Darnold on a long-term contract. So there you go.
Okay.
That to me is probably, the best realistic option is that the Titans get Darnold. I think if they got Darnold, I don't know. Am I overreacting to what we saw this year? I think if they got Darnold for, again, can you get a 4-year deal where you're pretty much locked in for 2?
Yeah.
I think they'd have decent quarterbacking. I don't know that he'd be great. He had a great situation there, but he showed me something this year, despite the way it finished.
I'd feel a lot better about that if it was just strictly free agency. When you get into the franchise tag and having to give up picks in order to do it, again, I said it earlier in the offseason, if you feel great about him being a franchise quarterback, then giving up 35 as Stillman has thrown out there, I don't think is a huge price to pay for a franchise quarterback. But again, you got to be pretty sure he's your franchise quarterback if you're doing that. I'd feel way better about Sam Darnold if it was just, Minnesota's letting him go to free agency and you're the highest bidder for him.
Well, still he's investigating down in New Orleans, tells him that there's a 0% chance he's going to be with the Vikings next year.
We have heard some of that.
I don't understand. I really don't understand, if you're the Vikings, why you wouldn't tag him and get something for it.
I don't either. Other than, we've talked about, number one, they clearly love J.J. McCarthy, which is fine. But again, he's coming off an injury and he hasn't played a snap yet. I just think the tag makes a lot of sense from the standpoint of, even if you're going to move him, have him under your control, and then you could get something for him at that point. Now, they've got a left tackle that they've got to find a way to get back in there as well. So do you have to use the tag on him? Do you come to a long-term agreement with him? There are some extenuating circumstances that they're going to have there, but I'm with you. I think it makes a lot of sense to tag him no matter what.
Yeah. And if not, then it's like a Darnold is a guy who very different from Stafford. Stafford's like timeline limited. Give me the best possible situation to win now. Darnold, of course, money. Of course, who actually wants me? Who actually? That's the biggest part of the whole thing. But look, you could be talked into. I think if you're Darnold, talked into Nashville, and the expectations are low, that they are at the bottom. They're only going to go up from here. Callahan's a good QB guy. Look who he's worked with, et cetera, et cetera. I think he could be talked into that.
I would agree. Yeah. And with him, it's different than some of these other veteran guys. He also has not yet gotten like his big payday. So that's going to factor in heavily to whatever his next stop is.
And to me, he's going to get a payday, way better payday than you would have thought a year ago. It's not going to be big payday, but again, relative to quarterbacks, relative to humans on earth, it's quite a payday.
Nick and Franklin says, no, Darnold is too good for us to be bad and too bad for us to be good. We need to either draft a franchise quarterback or suck and look at quarterback in the draft the next year. Again, I understand.
Who you drafting next year?
I understand that thought process.
Who's great next year, Nick?
I don't know. Look, there's potential that you could have some pretty intriguing prospects next year. But I just don't
Carson
know yet
Beck?
about any of them. Beck, Drew Aller. Like, there's a lot of people that feel good about him.
Okay. He's got traits. So Drew Aller has traits. I have not seen him be great. I saw him, he's got traits. Nico's got traits. Arch can run. Okay. But next year is going to be amazing. Like, we knew that Caleb Williams and Drake May at this point before their year were coming next year.
Correct.
I don't know anybody next year that I feel great about.
Now, I don't either. Now, having said that, we knew Caleb Williams and Drake May were coming at this point when they were heading in their last year at college. We did not know Jaden Daniels was, and then he ascended into what he is.
Sure.
So that happens a lot as well, of somebody not necessarily out of nowhere, because it wasn't like Jaden Daniels wasn't good before that, but he elevated into being a great player and a Heisman Trophy winner. So does that happen with Drew Aller next year? Maybe. Does that happen with, I don't know, Nico or Arch Manning? Maybe. I don't know. But you can't make that call today if you're an NFL team looking ahead and saying, well, yeah, we feel great about Nico next year being like coming out of the draft.
Right. Yeah, the Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow actually really similar. Both going to their last year at LSU was like, yeah, pretty good. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, Heisman winner. Although I did not realize Jaden Daniels was going to be what he is. Good for you, Washington. Washington fans, you're going to have a heck of a time. But you're right, that does happen. And then you have years like this where, a year ago, the guy you probably talk about was Carson Beck. And instead, no thanks, go to Miami for a year and see what you can do, right? It's just, but right now, anybody's saying, well, it's stink for next year. You might not like stinking and being that high next year in terms of the QB at all.
Yeah. I mean, also, look, if you don't love a quarterback this year, you can't, to me, taking one just because you're afraid that you might not be in a position to get one next year is just a horrible way to go about things. Like, I just don't think you can operate that way. There are ways to find a way to try to move back up and get a quarterback. Or look, I mean, if you're going the veteran route, and let's say Darnold does become available, like you're hoping, like Darnold's what, 27, 28? Like you're hoping that you could get a few good years out of him. Like the most important thing for this group right now, yes, finding a quarterback. Right there with it, particularly with Brian Callahan. Why don't you win some games? Like get back to playing a little bit of winning football, Been a while since we've seen some of that around here.
Exactly. Get good football players, get a good quarterback, see what it's a way better life than, just trying constantly. Again, and the idea of, oh, you really want to suck this year. So go through that. And then what is that going to be like when you suck for another year? Who gets fired? Who's coming in? I mean,
Callahan's definitely getting
fired. I mean, you can't, that's not how you go about your business. And I think I ended the show yesterday the same way, but it's like the good thing about the NFL now is opportunities open up in the veteran QB realm so much more now than they used to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
it makes the league more fun. It makes the league more fun. And also gives teams more ways to escape the quarterback desert.
The quarterback movement that we're seeing the last 3-4 years in the offseason, it's awesome. I think it's great for the league. So I really, really, really like it. I think it does change kind of your outlook if you're a team, because you can get into some of these deals just easier than you could before with the way that things are structured now. That does it for us today. We'll be live at Duncan tomorrow. Come hang out with us 6 to 9 a.m. down in Brentwood.
We'll see you there.
Big Joe coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.